So if you're taking notes, which you should be taking notes, and if you've come to the 508 before, you've heard it a million times, but note takers are... That's right. The pen remembers what the mind forgets. So take notes. I promise you it's going to help you in the future when you have to look back and reference something. You're going to wish that you took these notes. So definitely write these things down. And I'm going to start us off with our main text. So if you have your Bibles or your phones, turn to Ecclesiastes 3. Ecclesiastes 3. I'm going to be reading out of the NIV version. Wow, already shouting me down. This is great. It says this: for everything there is a season and a time for every activity under heaven. A time to give birth and a time to die, a time to plant, a time to uproot what is planted, a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to tear down and a time to build up, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance, a time to scatter stones and a time to gather stones, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to seek and a time to lose, a time to keep and a time to discard, a time to tear apart and a time to mend, a time to be silent and a time to speak, a time to love and a time to hate, a time for war and a time of peace. What gain then does the laborer get with his toil? I have seen the task that God has given the children of men to keep them occupied. He has made everything beautiful in its time. Moreover, he has set eternity in their heart, yet without the possibility that humankind can ever discover the work that God has done from the beginning to the end. From the beginning to the end. Now, have you ever been in a position where something like really negative happens to you, and then like sometime after that, another thing happens, and then like another thing happens after that, and then another thing happens after that, and you're like, man, I don't know what's going on, but I feel like I can't catch a break. I feel like it's like I just can't win. Have you ever been in a position like that? So I look really young. And I still consider myself young. I'm 30. But when I was 20, I made the brilliant decision to move down to Florida. And I wanted to find myself. Oh my gosh, I just need to find myself. So I moved down to Florida thinking I would find myself in Florida. Nope, I didn't find her. But thankfully I had my parents' blessing to go down. And I packed all my stuff and I moved down. And when I got there, I got a job. I had my housing arrangements all squared away. I was in the process of transferring my college credits so that I could go to a school down there. And I was like, wow, this is great. Like, I'm ready to go. Like, this is awesome. And then I want to say like a month into me living in Florida, I had to quit my job because my work environment I was being verbally abused at work. So I knew I couldn't stay there any longer. I quit my job. I could not get a job anywhere else. And people are like, you couldn't get a job anywhere else? No, I literally applied to Walmart and I couldn't get a job. So you know it's bad if you can't get a job at Walmart, okay? Couldn't get a job. Most of my credits wouldn't transfer. So I decided, I'm just not going to go to school this semester. I'll work. Couldn't get a job. And then my housing situation, a lot of things happened. They actually took advantage of me. I felt like I was Cinderella. I lived in their house for free, but I worked like a dog for these people. And it got so bad that they wouldn't even give me food. They would lock their food in their bedroom, and I had to literally eat scraps from the kitchen. I'm not even lying. This is true. Because I didn't have a job, I didn't have money. And so I would go around and collect change so that I could buy food or put gas in my car to go anywhere. And this is ridiculous. It got so bad that my cousins, I went to their house and I needed to get to school and I had like no gas left. And they literally funneled gas from their go-kart into my car so that I could get to school. Like that's how bad my life was in Florida. And I remember like all these things happening, and it didn't happen in like a month. It happened over a course of like 9 months where it just never ended. And I remember feeling like, what the heck? Like I moved down here like to start a new life and to find myself, and nothing is working out. Nothing. Everything is just like blowing up in smoke, and I can't find any stability anywhere. And little did I know that while I was going through all this craziness, that God was still in control of my life. He still had a hand on my situation. I would randomly get money in the mail. I never told anybody anything that I was going through, by the way. My parents never knew anything until after. I felt ashamed, like I made this decision, I just have to deal with it. And so I never said anything, but I would randomly get like $20 here, $30 here in the mail. One time my car broke down in the middle of the intercoastal, which is like a bridge, and I had no way. I had no cell phone. I didn't know what I was going to do. Some guy came out of nowhere, ran across the highway, pushed my car to the nearest gas station. Like out of nowhere, this guy came, and he was wearing like a little cross necklace. And I'm like, oh, that guy's my angel. Like God literally sent an angel to save me. And so things like that, I realized, okay, well, things are bad, but God is still in control. God is still taking care of me. God is still looking out for me. And in that moment, I honestly felt like this is my life. Like this is just how my life is just going to be forever. When you're in the middle of something, you honestly feel like this is it. Nothing's going to change. Nothing's ever going to be different. Like this is just my life now. I have to embrace it. But I want to tell you tonight that was just a part of my journey. But it was not the whole story. See, your season is not your story. Your season is not your story. And I had to learn that because God was showing me, no, I got you. I'm taking care of you. I'll carry you through this. I'll carry you through this. It's part of my journey, but it's not my whole journey. He's got something more for me. He's got something more for you too. So I want to encourage you with that. And we think about it and we're like, okay, seasons. All right, yeah, I think I'm in a season right now. What does that look like? How do I get through this? How do I navigate through these seasons? Well, I want to share some things, some takeaways that I think might be helpful. And one thing I want to share with you about seasons is seasons are for growth. Seasons are for growth. My boss has this amazing garden in her backyard. And over the summer, I was going to her house a lot to do some work, and I never really noticed it before. And then one day I was cutting through her backyard, and I just happened to catch it out of the corner of my eye, and I was like, what's that? And I went over to it, and I was like, ooh, this is beautiful. And I'm like literally like sneaking around in her garden, and I'm like, oh, it smells delicious. I can smell the herbs, and she's got these plump vegetables hanging off of the plants, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to like steal some of these. Thankfully I didn't. She just gave them to me, but I was so inspired by her garden that I was like, all right, I'm going to go home and I'm going to start a garden. Now, let me tell you something. My husband is an incredible man. I think I won the jackpot with my husband. He is amazing. He's great at so many things. He's a phenomenal pastor. He's an incredible athlete. He absolutely, I love you, babe. He's so great, but he absolutely sucks at household stuff. Like Zion is handier than Devin. I mean, he cannot fix anything in the house. Like, babe, the light bulb's out. You want to get it? Yeah, I'll take care of it. Sure, I'll take care of it. And so, one of the things that maybe you've noticed if you've come to my house, especially over the summer, is our yard looks like trash. Okay, Devin mowed the lawn once. The entire summer, one time. And so when I got home and I really analyzed and assessed our yard, I realized there's nothing gonna grow out of this yard. So I'm just not gonna plant anything here. I'm just gonna go inside and plant like an indoor little garden in my kitchen. I have a higher chance of success if I do that. So I decided, I went out, bought all the stuff, created this little garden, set it up in my kitchen. It looks so cute, just little herbs. And a week later, it died. And I went in there, and I didn't notice it was dying. I just happened to walk in there, and I was just going to cut a couple of the herbs off and, like, use it to cook. And I'm like, oh, these are nasty. I can't use them. And so I had to check them all, and I'm like, I don't understand. Like, I just planted them. Why did they die like that? And I realized it's because I didn't do anything that I was supposed to do in order to help them to grow. So I didn't fluff the soil. I didn't water them. I didn't do anything. And, a lot of us, that's how we tend to coast through life is we want the product without the production. We want the fruit without the labor. We're not willing to put in the work that's required in order to get the results. And actually, Genesis 26:12. I love this verse. It says, Isaac sowed into that land and reaped in the same year 100-fold, and the Lord blessed him. See, Isaac didn't just, this is what I get, so whatever, it is what it is. I'm not going to really do anything. I'm not going to invest in this. No, he took what he had, and he sowed into that land. He really worked that land. See, whatever season that you're in, you got to work it. If you want to see results, if you want to see growth, you got to sow into that season. You got to sow into it. You can't just, I'm just going to wait for this season to pass, and then it's on to the next one. No, you really got to put in the work. You really got to put in the work. I find that sometimes, and maybe you're in this season right now where things are going awesome. You're like, wow, my life is just, honestly, I can't really complain. I feel so blessed. Everything is working out the right way. And that's the season that you're in. And that's amazing. That's awesome. But there's still something for you to learn and grow in within that season. See, God wants to teach us gratitude a lot of times. Things are going great because he wants to teach you how to be grateful for what you have. Because when you come out of that season and then you start hitting the hard stuff, you have something to reflect back on. You know what? God did this with me, and I'm here right now, but I've seen what he's done. And I know where he can take me. He can take me further. He can take me higher than I've ever been. I was here. I may be here, but I'm going to be up here. I've just got to be faithful with it. I just got to work it because he wants to grow me. And if you're in a season where things are just painful, you feel like it's impossible. I don't know how I'm going to make it through it. God is teaching you something in that season. He's not causing all of these bad things to happen, but he's using those things because he wants to develop you. He wants to grow you. It's part of your journey. It's part of your story. So I don't know if you guys have seen my Instagram story that I posted like a couple days ago, but Zion is teething. Or he's been teething since he was 2 months old. And literally, he just got teeth at 7.5 months. And then he just got 2 more teeth at the beginning of this month. But it took 5.5 months for teeth to come out. This poor kid was like punching his face because he was so uncomfortable. He would be miserable sometimes. He'd be crying. He would just be like, this hurts so bad. And you can tell, like, it's so painful for them. But that's what growing does. That's what growing does. He needs those teeth in order to eat. And he can't function later on and eat properly the way he should if he doesn't have his teeth. But he's got to go through some growing pains first. In fact, I actually want to show the video in case you didn't see it. I brought the video to show you guys. So just take a look. There's my little guy. Look at those teeth! He looks like Goofy, like the Disney character Goofy. He's got like the big gap and the big wide teeth. My little guy. He's such a cute baby. But that's what growth does. Growth comes with pain. Growth is uncomfortable. It's part of the journey. You know what growth also comes with? Sacrifices. There's sacrifices that come with growth. I have this plant. I know I'm talking about plants a lot tonight, but I have this plant in my house that looks like a little tree. And I remember the day I got it, I went to the flower market. I saw it and I was like, ooh, that would look so good in my house. I need to go get it. And so I went over with my little cart and I picked it up and I put it on my cart. And the seller came over to me and he said, oh, ma'am, this is a... plant. I don't remember what it was. But he said, this is such and such plant, and, this is how you want to take care of it. It's kind of a needy plant, but this is what you want to do. And the whole time, it was like Pinterest exploded in my mind, and all I could think about was, oh, where would this look good? Like, do I have a pot to put this plant in? Would it look good in that corner of my living room, or should I put it in the hallway, or maybe even in the bedroom or the kitchen? I don't know. And so I'm having all these ideas going on in my head, and instead of listening to the seller about what to do with this plant, I was just on my own thought. And sometimes with growth, it requires sacrifices, and sacrifices require wisdom. And wisdom would have told me to listen to that seller and hear what he had to say about that plant, but I wasn't really paying attention to that. I was paying attention to myself. And you know what? When we're going through seasons and we need to learn how to grow through those seasons, we need to tune into what our leaders, what our pastors, what our mentors, what our teachers are saying to us, because they're pouring into us, providing wisdom for us, and we have to respond with wisdom too. We got to learn from them. We've got to listen to them. And so I took that plant home, I set it up, and then this was actually probably back in like November. And then at the beginning of this month, Pastor Shane Lima and his wife Alini came over to hang out. We were all hanging out, and he looked over and he noticed my plant. And he was like, whoa, that's the plant. That's so cool. You got one for your house. I love it. And so we're talking about plants, and I'm like, yeah, you know what's weird is like the leaves just keep falling off. Like I water it like crazy, but it's like it's dying. And he was like, oh, well, with that plant, you got to do this, and you got to care for it like this, and you got to do that, and blah, blah, blah. And he's sharing a little bit with me. I'm like, oh, okay, I'll try that out. Just like, and I did, I put into practice what he said, and just like with sacrifices, okay, you've got wisdom, you've got obedience. You've got to put it into action. You don't just listen to what people tell you. You don't just learn from them, but you put it into action. You surrender to God's word. Okay, I need to grow through this season. What do? You surrender to God's word. You open up his word and you dig in and you read what he has to say to you, because the word is active and living. And so when you read it, it's not just reading pages. It's reading you. It's telling you what you need. It's reflecting exactly what you need. Okay, so when you're obedient and you're applying what he says for you to do, listen, obedience is not easy. There are times where you're like, oh, God, that's what you're telling me to do? I don't really want to do that. But obedience is not about doing what you want. Obedience is doing what you need to do. Okay? So with sacrifices, you need to apply wisdom. You need to obey. And just like that plant, it still looks like it's dying. But I'm waiting it out, because I believe that if I put into practice the things that I've been taught, it'll come back to life. And with sacrifices, you need to trust in God and trust in his timing and believe that he's going to take you where you need to go. It's all in his timing. It's all in his plan. Amen? So seasons are for growth. Number 2, don't rush your season. Relish it. Don't rush your season. Relish it. I love this verse. It's the Message version, and technically it's applying to marriage, but honestly, you could replace marital status with anything, and it would still apply. It says, and don't be wishing you were someplace else or with someone else. Where you are right now is God's place for you. Where you are right now is God's place for you. Live and obey and love and believe right there. God, not your marital status, or you could say God, not your education. God, not your career. God, not your loneliness, not your singleness, not your illness, not your family, not your friends. God defines you. God defines you. When I've shared this a lot many times, but a big part of my story is I was single for a long time. I never had a serious relationship until I never had a relationship until I was 26 years old when I met my husband. And I was single, like never dated. I mean, I went on dates, but I never was in a committed relationship. And I just felt like I needed to clarify that. And it was really hard for me because in high school, all of my friends were in serious relationships. And then when we graduated college, they all got married. And here I was, single Nat, just waiting for my guy. But he never came. And it was hard. There were times in my life where I remember feeling like, I feel like I'm not really wanted. Like, nobody's really pursued me. The guys that I have met, like, no offense, they're all losers. They weren't losers. They weren't. They weren't. They weren't. It wasn't that. It was just, there was something about them that didn't feel right. You know what I mean? Like, it just didn't feel right. And I didn't want to force it because I didn't want to just settle for okay. I wanted to keep waiting because I honestly thought God had something better for me. But there were times where I'm like, I don't think he does. Because I'm just waiting and waiting and waiting and nothing is happening. But you know what? If I hadn't waited, I wouldn't have the blessings that I have today. I have an incredible, incredible husband. My son is my world. Everything that my relationship with Devin, the path that it took me on, my life has never been more fulfilled. And I would have never experienced any of that. I probably wouldn't even be here at the 508 or at Connect Church if I had settled for less. If I had settled for someone else because I didn't want to be single anymore. See, I wanted to rush my season, but I chose not to. And God rewarded me for that. He blessed me for that. And so, and it's funny too, because sometimes we forget, like I remember when I had Zion, a bunch of my girlfriends who had just gotten married came to visit us at the hospital. They were like, oh, babies, oh my gosh, I got baby fever. And I was like, you should totally have a baby. It changes your world. You fall in love like you've never fallen in love before. Have a baby. And then they came to visit me a month later, and I was like, don't have a baby. Don't do it. They're amazing, but they change everything. Enjoy where you're at. You just got married, have fun. Enjoy your season of marriage, just the two of you. Family will develop later, but just have fun where you're at. Same thing if you're single. If you're single, enjoy where you're at. There are benefits to being single that you don't experience when you're in a relationship with someone. And instead of focusing on, I don't have that person, focus on, okay, I get to do me. This is great. I get to travel. I get to, start up a career, a business without having to run it by anybody. Like, I mean, you should run it by someone, but you know what I mean. You know what I mean. You're not tied down. You know what I mean? And just like being in a relationship has its benefits too, that you don't experience in other ways. But I'm just telling you, wherever you're at, enjoy it. Don't rush it, because God's got something great for you. God's got something great for you. And I find that there are two things that people miss when they rush their season. They miss out on lessons, and they miss out on blessings. Lessons. When I was 20, can you tell I was an idiot when I was 20? When I was 20 years old, I opened up my first credit card. Let me tell you why I opened up my first credit card. I didn't really make a lot of money at my job. This makes me sound like such an idiot. I didn't really make a lot of money at my job. And I have come a long way, praise Jesus. And my mom, it was Mother's Day coming up, and I was like, you know what? I really want to get my mom that gift that she had mentioned she really wanted. But I don't have the money for it. What am I going to do? Credit card. I'll just open up a credit card. So I went to a department store and opened up a credit card with a 23% interest rate. What is wrong with me? So I did that, right? And I was like, okay, I'm just going to buy this gift. I'll pay off the credit card, and I'll just never use it again. Maxed out my credit card in 2 weeks. I had like a $5,000 limit. You know why? Because I saw freedom. I was in a season of financial limitation. And when I had the credit card, I was like, I can just buy whatever I want. This is great. And I took advantage of it, but I had to pay a very high price later. Because instead of just budgeting and stewarding what I did have in order to enjoy the fruit of my labor later, I wanted to rush through that season and I paid the price for it afterwards. And that was the lesson that I learned. Blessings. I have a friend here who she worked really hard to get through college. Because of her immigration status, she didn't qualify for financial aid or government assistance. She had to pay out of pocket for college. Now, if you're a college student or you're looking into college or you've been to college, you know how stupidly expensive college is. She paid for college by herself. Her parents did not help. She paid on her own, out of pocket. And I know that was a very difficult season for her because she had to work really hard. And I'm sure there were times where she was like, I just want to give up, honestly. Is it even worth it for me to keep going through school? Is it worth it for me to invest all this money and do all these things? Like, is it worth it? But she paid the price, and she stuck it out through that season, and now she's got her bachelor's degree, and she's pursuing her dream career that she probably wouldn't have been able to do if she didn't pay the price that she knew she needed to pay to get there. But she stuck it out. Blessings. Lessons and blessings. Do not rush your season. It's not about what season you're in. It's about how you navigate that season. Wherever you're at, however you respond to it, it'll either propel you or it'll hinder you. So you have to have the right perspective. It's not about what season you're in. It's about how you navigate it. And sometimes, we're like, oh, gosh, you don't know what I'm going through. You don't know where I'm at right now. Like, I feel like I'm in this alone. Listen, there's a time for everything, but there's never a time to quit. There's a time for everything, but there's never a time to quit. And you're not in this alone. You may feel like you're alone. I don't know you. Standing up here, I don't know your story. I don't know what you're going through. I don't know the season that you're in. But what I do know is that there are other people who are going through what you're going through. And you may be sitting right next to them. You don't know. But you're not in this alone. And that's why community is one of the most important things you can be a part of. That's why we push small groups so hard. Actually, we have our small groups launching at the end of the month. So next month, we'll have small group signups. But we always encourage people to sign up because you form relationships with people you never thought you'd form relationships with. You find support in people that you never knew were going through what you were going through. And you know what? Let me tell you something. God allows you to go through certain things. It's not just for you. It's so that you can help other people. Your story is not just meant to benefit you, it's meant to bless other people. And you figure that out in a journey with community among people. So I want to encourage you, don't rush where you're at. Don't give up. Join in a small group, join a community, partner up with people to find that support. And they will help carry you through that. Where you're at is a season. Don't rush it, relish it. And lastly, and this is actually the most important point of the night, so I really want you to tune in. If you haven't listened to anything I said, that's okay, but I want to encourage you to tune in now and pay attention because this is the most important thing. I want you to understand the difference between seasons and cycles. Understand the difference between seasons and cycles. See, seasons are temporary. Seasons have a start and seasons end. It's not forever. Okay, they come and go. Cycles are different. Cycles start and then we don't know when they stop. They just keep going and going and going, like a loop. That's what a cycle is. So 3 years ago, I chose to make a career change, and I started working at a nonprofit organization, and my position was to, I did social work, and my position was to work with chronically homeless single adults. I mean, who knows what that even means? But when I started, I found out that chronically homeless means you don't just couch surf. You're literally living under a bridge or living in a tent or a parking garage. Like you have no place to go. That was the population that I worked with one-on-one. And the goal of my program was to set people up and help teach people how to adapt to society again and to eventually become self-sufficient. And the biggest win of our program was for them to graduate the program. And I had a few clients that would make it that far where they would graduate the program. But unfortunately, 3 months or less, they'd come right back into the program. And I remember feeling so frustrated, like, oh my gosh, they were there. Like, they reached the finish line. They finally made it out of here, and they're in a better place. Like, they're walking along a better path. Like, why are they back to square one? Why are they back here? And a lot of the other case managers and I, we would analyze, kind of like try and figure out, dissect the situation. And we realized that where they were at was not a season. They weren't in a season of homelessness. It was a cycle that they were stuck in. And them, running out of money or maybe relapsing or whatever the case was, those were symptoms of this cycle, but that wasn't the root issue. And we were trying to figure out, like, okay, what is the root issue? And you know what the root issue with cycles are? It's not just bad habits. It's actually an unhealthy heart. It's an unhealthy heart. And if you have time at some point, I really want to encourage you to check out our podcast app. Pastor Devin actually, he preached a message called Healthy Heart. Heart attack, sorry. Wrong title. Heart attack, but he talks about having a healthy heart and what that looks like. And it's incredible. He taught it at our Leaders Advance last week, and it was amazing. So I want to encourage you to check that out. But when it comes to an unhealthy heart, there are 4 things to look at. An unhealthy heart harbors unforgiveness. It lacks covenant relationships. There's no hope. There's no vision. So with my clients, I realized the lack of covenant relationships, they were all family on the streets. But if someone couldn't give you what they wanted, see ya, you're on your own. And they were left with nothing. No support, no one to be there for them, absolutely nothing. When you have a covenant relationship, you have a relationship with someone who will carry you, who will empower you, who will challenge you, who will speak the potential in you, who will lead you. They didn't have that. They didn't have that. Unforgiveness. 100% of these people all came from a broken home, came from dysfunction, came from tragic childhood. There was a lot of baggage from their childhood, from their upbringing, and they held on to that. They had a lot of bitterness towards their parents or towards their family members or their environment. They harbored unforgiveness. No hope. I mean, these people literally would wake up in the morning and just live out their day without even thought to the future. They never thought about tomorrow. They just carried on just for today. No vision. No vision. They would wake up. They would go to therapy sometimes, hang around the streets, collect cans, recycle them for cash, go home, wake up the next morning, do it again. No vision, no goals, nothing to propel them to keep moving forward. Nothing, absolutely nothing. And I remember talking to them and being like, I don't understand. You have everything within you to do this, to make it. I believe in you. You have tools. You may not have friends on the streets, but I'm your case manager. I will be there for you. I will support you. I will do everything you need to make sure that you can make it. Why can't you do this? And they couldn't do it because it was up to them. There was only so much I could do, but it was up to them. See, seasons change with time, but cycles change when you do. Seasons change with time, but cycles change when you do. And they had it right there. They had everything they could possibly need to change their circumstances, to change their lives. But their heart was sick, and they didn't change their heart. They didn't look into changing their heart. They didn't even realize that they needed to change their heart. And maybe you're sitting here tonight and you're thinking, okay, I recognize where I'm at right now is a season. I'm sticking it out. I'm not rushing it. I'm applying wisdom. I'm being sacrificial. I'm applying wisdom. I'm being obedient. I'm waiting on God's timing. It's tough. but I know it's a season. I'm going to make it through. That's great. Keep fighting. Don't give up. Don't give up. But maybe you're sitting in here and you're like, okay, yeah, I don't think that's a season. I think I'm in a cycle that I find that it's repeating over and over, and I can't seem to figure out, like, why does this keep happening to me? Why doesn't it stop? Why does it just keep going? And the reality is that you're in a cycle. Okay, so how do I break that cycle? What do I do to break that cycle? If it's an unhealthy heart, how do I get my heart right? And it starts with recognizing who Christ is. Because when you recognize who Christ is, you see who you are. You recognize Christ, you recognize yourself. When you recognize yourself, you find your identity. When you find your identity, you find your purpose. When you find your purpose, you find hope. You find encouragement, empowerment. You find strength. So that when you're in those seasons, you can keep going. Especially when those seasons are tough. You can keep going. And maybe you're sitting in here and you're like, I don't even know who this Jesus is. Let me tell you, this Jesus, he loves you so much, he gave himself up. He sacrificed his life knowing that you may never even think about him. How crazy is that? What kind of love is that? That blows my mind when I think about it. That someone would die for me that doesn't even know. There's a chance I would never even think about, that I would never even pursue, that I would never love back. That didn't stop him. He still died for you, for me. That's a crazy love. That's a radical love. There's no other love that compares to that. And you're like, I want to know that love. I want to know who that Jesus is. I've never experienced that, but I want to know what that is. I want to encourage you tonight, if that's you, open up your heart and invite him in.